On this week's episode of Crimes That Shook Sports, we will be covering the Bertil Fox murders and how a bodybuilder went from sitting with his idols to suddenly sitting on death row. A once highly regarded and promising bodybuilder turned violent in paradise. Before getting into the case, it's important to give a background on Bertil Fox and explain kind of how he got to this point in general. Born on November 9th, 1951 on the island of St. Kitts, Bertil Fox was just a child when his parents packed everything and moved all the way back to London, England, and then later again to Northampton. Despite being born on an island, Fox long considered himself an Englishman due to his upbringing and familiarity with the country. Fox did not travel back to St. Kitts until he was in his early 40s, which will be an important fact to remember later. Fox began training seriously as a bodybuilder at the age of 16 after his cousin mentioned the sport to him and felt as though he would be good at it. By the age of 18, Fox competed in his first show, winning the overall at the 1969 Junior Mr. Britain, and continued to focus heavily on bodybuilding, earning a reputation as Brutal Bertil due to his extremely intense lifting methods. Fox won a string of shows after his stage debut and competed in the Mr. World and Mr. Universe competitions as an amateur before officially turning pro in 1981, largely due to the sponsorship of Joe Weider, who brought Fox to Los Angeles at the time. Over the next 13 years as a professional in the IFBB, Fox developed close relationships with opposing bodybuilders such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lee Haney. Schwarzenegger in particular noted that Fox was one of his best training partners. Fox placed second in two professional shows in 1982 and 1983, and later finished fifth at the Mr. Olympia competition, and a very controversial finish that even Fox felt was wrong, and visibly showed that on stage. Fox competed at the Mr. Olympia 5 times in total, and put together a respectable career at the top of the sport before retiring in 1995 from the stage for good. But his career was not necessarily one that he was proud of, due to a lack of financial gain that the sport gave him. Fox was very outspoken about the fact that he did not enjoy working the London Underground throughout the majority of his career in order to financially support both his wife and his 3 kids, but desperately wanted to make a career in bodybuilding work throughout the entire time. After announcing his retirement, Fox moved to the island of St. Kitts and began working on opening Fox's Gym, which was set to be a premier destination gym that matched both his brutal lifting style and all of the aspects of bodybuilding that Fox loved. Fox spent all of the money that he had in hopes of making a better name for himself on the island. However, brutality is anything but what the island of St. Kitts preaches as peaceful people, and one unfortunate day in 1997 remains one of the few murders recorded in the history of the island. On September 30th, 1997, Fox was on his way to his girlfriend's mother's dress shop to meet both Leo K. Brown, his girlfriend, and Violet Brown, her mother. Fox and Leo K. had a tumultuous relationship that once looked like marriage, but the majority of the time looked rather rocky for the two. The 20-year-old fashion model was on the brink of her own success, as Fox settled his way out of the spotlight for the time being after retiring from the stage. Instead, Fox would quickly return to the spotlight after an argument between the three led to a physical struggle, which then led to a firearm owned by Fox to be discharged, violently changing both his career and the way that bodybuilding would be viewed for the short term in 1997. The noise and arguments led to many onlookers witnessing the scene, and due to the popularity of Fox and the Browns, curiosity instantly piqued, and the case had all eyes of the island on it. Fox quickly hired the island's top lawyer, Dr. Henry Brown, as gossip continued to fill the island regarding the exact facts of the case and what happened. According to Fox, after returning to St. Kitts from England, his firearm was missing, and Fox called Leo K. to locate his weapon. Leo K. stated the gun was in her mother's shop, and her mother, Violet, refused to give the gun back to Fox when he approached her at the shop. While Fox did not give details as to why, the mother likely refused to give his gun back due to the ongoing conflict between the couple, and the fact that Fox had reportedly become physically abusive with Leo K. Fox then claims he attempted to take the weapon back from the possession of Violet, which led to 3 shots going off as Leo K., Violet, and Fox all struggled with the firearm. Leo K. would be shot twice, while Violet was struck once. Both victims were pronounced dead at the scene, and Fox was immediately taken away. With Fox in custody and the court going off a very hazy series of events, the first trial ended with a hung jury, and a second trial would sentence Fox to death by hanging, which is the automatic punishment for murder in St. Kitts, thus locking away the exact events of that day with Fox. With a lack of evidence in hand and plenty of motive to go with the crime, Fox was quickly sentenced to death by hanging in an open and shut second case that infuriated the locals, who rarely ever saw such crimes occur on the island. Fox attempted multiple appeals, but was denied before finally getting through to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London. A proper appeal was finally filed, and Fox quickly saw his sentencing change from death to life, on the grounds that the death penalty had become an unconstitutional punishment for his crimes. Although that was still not enough for Fox, who continued to insist that the crime was not premeditated, but rather an unfortunate accident that occurred after his girlfriend attempted to produce the weapon. After years of repair of the island and support from the Death Penalty Project, who provided free legal counsel and representation, major changes occurred that would result in Fox having his case reviewed. On August 4th, 2022, after serving 25 years in prison, Fox was pardoned by the Governor General of St. Kitts and returned to England shortly after to be reunited with his family. Since returning home, things have not necessarily been easy for Bertil Fox, as relearning the entire world and understanding the changes of the world have been rather difficult for the old man now. However, Fox continues to be a major public figure, and while he no longer publicly posts and no longer exercises the same that he used to, many people continue to follow him and continue to follow his actions. Following the crimes of Bertil Fox, a massive shockwave was sent through the bodybuilding world, but it was not necessarily for the reasons that you would think. It wasn't for the exact crimes, but rather issues that led up to the crimes, and issues that had occurred outside of the stage for Fox. Bodybuilding housed a dark past that involved the abuse of steroids and a clear no-talking policy amongst the athletes in an effort to hide what being a bodybuilder is truly like both inside and out. While Fox had quite a terrible life off the stage and outside of the gym, he also dealt with extreme pressure from his family as well. While his family did not necessarily need him to win, they needed money in order to continue to live. That's why Fox was visibly upset whenever he had poor placings. Fox struggled with a complex for much of his bodybuilding career and adult life, where he felt extreme pressure to succeed, both on the stage and off the stage. In the gym, outside of the gym, it didn't necessarily matter. Fox just felt like he had to be the best version of himself, no matter where he was going. And in turn, he felt like he wasn't receiving any respect for the work that he had been putting in and the accomplishments that he had received. Fox was considered to be one of the best bodybuilders during the 70s and 80s, but in this time, Fox still had to work a basic minimum wage job to keep his family afloat. Fox in turn struggled with his relationships and often found himself in hot water with his family due to his strong commitment to bodybuilding over many other aspects of life. Fox had dreamed of coming to the United States and did so while leaving his family behind after receiving an offer from Joe Weider. His wife and 3 kids were left in England while Fox had come to the United States with his girlfriend. Fox originally traveled to St. Kitts not to become closer to his heritage and his birthplace, but rather to seek out a fresh start in a place where he could command more respect. However, Fox did not necessarily find that in St. Kitts, as his relationship with Leo Kay was very tumultuous and had multiple issues within it. Because of this, Fox continued to just find more of the same in the other country, and while doing this on the island, he also had no money after putting it all into the gym and trying to put all of his eggs in one basket in order to make a bodybuilding career, or at least a fitness career, work on the island. Unfortunately, as it continued to unravel, the case couldn't necessarily come at a worse time for both Fox and the IFBB, as many issues had been surrounding the league. One of the main issues that had been surrounding the league was the abuse of steroids, which obviously Bertil Fox had to use in order to achieve his physique, and in order to achieve any of the physiques at the time. Many people still didn't understand exactly how the compounds worked, so fans of the sport felt as though it was causing mental instability, and could have in turn caused some of these issues to occur. Because of a lack of knowledge about what the compounds do and how they affect human beings as well, many people felt as though Bertil Fox could have gone insane after having a prolonged abuse of these steroids, and then in turn during a fight decided to shoot both Leo K. Brown and Violet Brown after turning violent. Fox's case would have eerie similarities to another IFBB pro who had also murdered her IFBB professional husband just 2 years before the case of Fox. Sally and Ray McNeil looked like the idealistic IFBB couple, both of them at the top of their game, both of them considered to be some of the best bodybuilders in the world. While Ray was considered to be much better than Sally on the stage, the two put the exact same amount of effort into the sport, and both of them attempted to lift each other up, both on stage and off of the stage. However, off of the stage, Sally had developed a reputation, and her nickname for that reputation was called Killer Sally. During her time in the Marine Corps, Sally struggled with her anger, and she often struggled to keep it under wraps. Because of this, she lashed out at multiple people, and she also had angry encounters with officers, which led to her demotion in 1990. Following this, Sally was struggling for money, and she led herself down a very dark path. Sally began wrestling men for $300, but it wasn't necessarily the wrestling that you would think. Sally saw past this though, and she didn't necessarily see an issue with it. After doing this, she began focusing heavily on bodybuilding, and she began focusing much more heavily on her actual career. After meeting Ray, the duo began focusing very heavily on the IFBB. Sally had a respectable career while Ray continued to push the heights of bodybuilding, and he attempted to try to become Mr. Olympia. During this time, the McNeils had a great relationship, but behind the scenes, it was nothing but great, and shortly thereafter, images of exactly what had occurred behind the scenes would become very real to everybody. On February 14th, 1995, emergency services in Oceanside, California, received a call from McNeil, who stated, "I just shot my husband because he just beat me up." McNeil then hung up the phone, and quickly the scene was revealed as police officers were able to see exactly what happened, as a pool of blood was left on the ground, and blood was all over the walls after McNeil had shot Ray twice with a shotgun, and what she claimed was self-defense. But her eventual testimony would paint a very dark picture that also exposed some of the deep, dark truths about bodybuilding that many of the bodybuilders did not necessarily want the public to know. And in turn, when the public found out about these, they left a stain on the sport. McNeil admitted that the duo had been extremely violent to each other, and during this time while they were violent to each other, they had left both bruises, scars, and lacerations on each other due to fights. Including physical altercations, they were also mentally abusive to each other. At the time of his autopsy, Ray had 5 different kinds of steroids in his bloodstream, which further pushed the narrative that steroids were actually causing many of these situations to occur. McNeil also tested positive for a steroid called decadurabolin. After having that in her bloodstream, the theories began to swirl, and many people felt as though the duo had gotten to this point because of physical altercations that were caused due to steroids. Steroids ultimately became the scapegoat in the Brown murders, as much of the public felt the compounds caused his violent outbursts. The murder of Ray caused the public to see the dark side of bodybuilding without any filters, as the drug use, violence, and abuse all had to come forward. Unfortunately, the arrest of Fox and the murders caused a very similar stir to occur, just as the McNeil case had begun to slip out of the public eye. While Fox is now a free man, and the exact facts of the case have never been put onto the table, the former bodybuilder remains the only person to know the real truth. the case still remains a polarizing situation, as many that saw somebody at the top fall all the way to the bottom now see a man attempt to reclaim exactly who he was. Regardless, the impact on the bodybuilding world will always be felt after this case.